I'll ask Alderman Small to say an opening prayer, and then we'll get into our agenda.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for allowing us to be in this day again this morning. We ask, Lord, that you go with each and every one that has to represent and work in the city today. We ask, Lord, that you keep them safe. We ask, Lord, that we pray for those who are in need of your prayer to bring them closer to you. And now, Lord, we thank you for this food that's provided for the nourishment of our body. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. First item we have is review of the 9/9/2021 work session minutes. Anybody have any corrections, deletions, additions? Now we'll enter those into records. Next we have Kevin McAllister with Barge Designs to give us an update on current projects.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I want to just come down and appear before the board, give you an update on the active projects that we have with the city. Fayetteville Greenway Phase 2. The NEPA reevaluation was completed on September 17th. Immediately upon notification of that, we resubmitted all of our plans back to TDOT for re-review. Those are in TDOT's hands. We're awaiting their blessing. And once we have their consent, the next steps will be we will receive a notice to proceed to construction from TDOT. At that point, we can move forward with advertising the project for bid. I have a question for the city. Do you have a plan to advertise that project by the end of the year? Do you want to go ahead and advertise that immediately? I guess let me know what your thoughts are on how we want to move forward with that project. I would assume immediate action is expected, but if there's a different plan, I guess just let me know.
Well, let me ask you real quick. So at this time of year, I'm assuming that we do want to go as soon as we can, but at the same time, I would assume any major work would start in the spring. In the spring.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's a timing to consider there of when you want to break ground. So we can discuss that when the optimal timing is to advertise, to take advantage of the dry months.
And that the bid lasts long enough for
right. But there are things that you can start, like you want to, for the bridge, you can fabricate that. You can initiate the fabrication of the steel structure in the cold winter months and have it ready to be delivered in the summer. So there are things that you can work on in the winter months, but it's optimal to start in spring for sure to break ground.
Anybody have any other questions on phase 2 before he goes on? Okay.
Okay. For phase 3, we are working through the NEPA phase on that section as well. All agency coordination responses have been received from TDOT. We received 3 rounds of comments. All were addressed within 48 hours and sent back for re-review. The report was sent to FHWA on September 27th. We did receive the first round of comments from them on October the 5th, and Barge revised and resubmitted that report to FHWA the same day. So they have that, and we're pushing the document through as quickly as we can to get through the NEPA phase. Upcoming items for phase 3 will be to finalize the preliminary design plans, begin early utility coordination, and begin discussions with property owners for that section. And the third project was the Fayetteville soccer field, which ribbon cutting was September 29th. So it is open and ready to be used. So,
Do you have any questions?
That's all I have for today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
We're going to our department reports. We'll start with Public Works, Mr. Plunkett.
Thank you, Mayor. Adam Street is complete, all but the paving. We will be advertising that next week in the paper to get the paving bids back in. There's a misunderstanding in the way the bids was received, so we're putting them all back out for bid again. I don't know what else was on here.
We had property address change for Easley Drive.
The talk with Miss Easley, we got a letter from Mr. Hill. She came in yesterday afternoon and signed it. I don't know if it got, Miss Pam didn't have time. I don't know if it's in here or not. She come in late yesterday afternoon and signed the agreement. She's ticking with it. Easley Drive, her address will be somewhere around 103 or 105, 911. Well, Tuesday night, y'all pass it, 911 will go out and address it. She's tickled to death.
There's a statement in here that she signed on the iPads.
It did get in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Me and Miss Pam talked later yesterday afternoon, and she didn't know whether she'd get time to download it.
Yeah, we talked about this in Public Works, and we wanted something signed by her that she was in agreement with all of this, to where if something comes back later, we would have this, on file. And this is at her request.
Correct.
All of this is at her request.
And the only address changes will be, she owns 2 houses on one piece of property, so she's the only one that's going to affect as far as addressing.
So the board doesn't need to take any action Tuesday to...
We need to change the name of the street from Industrial Drive to Easley Drive.
Okay. The board good with carrying that forward? Okay. And then I'll see down here the bridge at William Battle.
The bridge on William Battle, just north of, I guess it'd be north of McDonald Street. Same shape some of these others have been in. The pillars are falling out from under the bottom of it. The road is sinking. Just want permission to move forward with curbers on the bid that they give us. That was supposed to be good for a year. Just like to move forward and give them a notice to proceed on that bridge. Get approval from you all.
And you don't have any cost estimate at the moment as far as what the total cost could be?
No, sir, but it'll be a whole lot cheaper. The one on Adams Street, I talked with Mr. West one day last week. He's projecting it's going to come in hopefully a little under 100,000. If we would have done it through the state, had the engineering and everything, it's been double that. So, and this one is a lot smaller bridge. We close the road, so it already come in a whole lot cheaper than that.
Yeah, and Vice Mayor mentioned finance, that one that William Battle just sitting on a slab of rock. Basically, the bridge.
It's like our drainage is down here on our street. It's just stacked rock, slab on top of it, and the rock are falling out from under.
Okay. Board okay with going forward?
Yeah, that particular street too, there's a bus route goes through there every day, but that street, they can detour. That street can be closed completely off.
Correct.
And it'll help a whole lot in being able to just close it.
Money-wise and time-wise also.
Yeah.
They can build a whole bridge at one time rather than build it half at a time.
Yeah, it's just a short detour right around that bridge. It doesn't affect anybody really.
Okay.
2 or 3 houses on the north side over there.
Yeah.
Miss Edie and then the housing authority. It's about the only ones, I think it's 2 or 4 units on the housing authority side that don't affect. So it's
And all they have to do is just go right back around behind and come back out.
Anything else?
That's all I got there.
Any other questions, Mr. Plunkett?
I forgot to ask about West Point Drive, the sign change for that. That's already taken place.
I think it's ordered, Miss Doherty.
Okay. I forgot to ask you that at the committee meeting.
We'll have to order one for this Easley Drive also. And our overhead signs are ordered for all the streets.
Okay, thank you.
But who knows? All the shortages in the film that it takes to make those. It's just at everybody's mercy right now. The parts on the vehicles, it's getting worse every day.
Yeah, I saw that picture this morning up there in Louisville with all the F-150s sitting on that, around all that racetrack. They don't have chips, so they're waiting on chips.
Well, it's everything. We got a truck been sitting in the shop for 3 weeks down here now that should have been a simple part. They sent one that was for the wrong side of the truck, and they don't know when we're gonna get it. Our garbage truck that's out at Shockley's, we got an October delivery date on the parts, but who knows? The other garbage truck, they've come down and put 2 computers in, and both computers was bad when they put them in. So it's living on crack. And you can't blame them, because they get the parts, bring and put them in, and they're not right. So
Right, sure. All right, thank you, sir. Go to the police department.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 3 permits for this one. We have the 7 weekends marks. We need it for approval.
It's October 29th through the 31st.
Yes, sir. And then the Fair Not Fest event permit will be October 31st. Then Bright Lights and Festive Nights event permit be December 3rd as well.
Board okay with taking this forward?
That's all I have to present. If you have any questions about anything.
I mean, we had I don't know if everybody's aware, but we had a fatality this past weekend
Yes,
on the bypass of
On the bridge. Yes, sir.
the pedestrian.
Yes. And if you don't mind, just keep me in your mind and your prayers and the family as well.
Yeah, sad situation.
It is.
Any questions for Commander Casillas? Thank you, sir. Go to the fire department.
The only thing I've got is just, y'all have my report on the iPads, and if you have any questions for me.
A lot of the EMS calls,
Yes, sir.
63.
Yes, sir.
Everything else going well out at the fire department?
Yes, sir. Everything's running smoothly right now.
What's the update on the the fire trucks, the ones that?
Engine one is just still getting the modifications made that we had to have to suit our needs. Engine two is fixing to go to Brandon Mountain. We're just kind of waiting for them to get some more parts in that they've ordered. Of course, like Eddie said, parts are just kind of sporadic on coming in, and then engine three is recently come back from having their motor replaced in it, and we're just kind of making sure all the kinks are worked out on it, and it's running good so far. So everything's good right now on it.
Any questions of the chief?
No, you had some good news at the committee meeting, though, that you're fully staffed now,
We
correct?
are, we're fully staffed, and everything's moving ahead on that. So we've got all of our promotions and new hires and everything completed. Good.
That's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. We currently have some serious lighting issues down at Don Davidson Park. After the last flood, FPU came down, shut off the power down there as they normally do. Before they can turn the power back on, they have to have a state inspector come in and check the lighting, make sure everything is to standard. The inspector came down, looked at the wiring, and agreed to turn it back on this one last time, but said we need some major overhaul of the system down at Don Davidson Park, which that alone I believe was going to be over $500,000.
No, for the electrical issue, we do not have a current bid, but I was told yesterday we're probably looking just to repair electrical, $250,000 to $300,000, just electrical.
And FPU also came in and did a drone aerial survey of the poles down there. A lot of the light and electrical poles for the ballpark are in bad disrepair. Just wearing over time, they're going to need to be replaced. And Chief Howell, what was the cost analysis?
For repairs of every pole in the park was just a little over $1 million. That's poles, lights, wiring it up.
Okay, moving on to the water slide. We have an option to replace or repair some damage that has been done over time on the water slide where bolts had been worn loose or had come loose, and it has caused stress fractures in the gel coat, which has caused some of the kids that have gone down the slide to be scratched. We did an estimate for, or we were digging for estimates for a complete new system or a repair. Talking to Bantam, which is out of Kentucky, they said a complete repair, to their best guess, would be about $175,000. They said it's roughly $40,000 per running foot. At 45 feet, that's $45,000, $30,000 for the renewal, or for the removal. For new installs, about the same price, and then depending on what we did with the tower, that could be another $75,000. Or we could get them to come in, reset everything, put a new gel coat on it for about $35,000, or up to $35,000.
And we spoke in finance, and we brought that forward on the repair as a recommendation, as opposed to the purchase of a new one.
The pool house, in the front of the rec center, and the Stonebridge Park pavilions and the concrete. We have recently had bid out for pressure washing. The police and fire did that last fall. It's at least at the Stonebridge Park this year. We were looking to have that bid out. All Outdoors came in with a sealed bid of $42.93. So it appears that they would be the winning bid upon y'all's approval. And the liquid chlorine versus the chlorine tabs, we did a cost analysis of those, going from the system that the former director had switched to, which was the tabs, and it was $50,000 as opposed to a little over $7,000 for the liquid chlorine annually. We have currently got the system in place, which it just took one pump at about $200. Now we can switch back to that liquid chlorine system and save about $43,000 annually by going back to the liquid chlorine system. So that's my report. Do y'all have any questions?
Well, let's go on these items. So on the water slide repairs, the board okay with going forward Tuesday night?
Yes.
Vote on the repair. And then on the pressure washing, on the bid, Commander, there was $42.93 for the pressure washing, but then there was also, looks like in here, $4,500 for painting for anything. Is that separate from the $42.93?
I believe that's correct.
That's 4,500, Mayor. Make sure we had one bid, it was 4,500, one bid, it was 43.95. We haven't priced any painting yet,
Okay.
which, once it's pressure washed, we will have to repaint, because it's gonna pull some paint up, it's already flaking off.
All right, so basically what you have in front of you is $42.93 for the
That's-
pressure washing.
That's for, name the buildings again, that's for in front of the rec center, front of the pool.
The pool and the pavilions at Stonebridge Park.
And that's all.
And the sidewalks from the walking track there at the waterfall all the way over to the end of the sidewalk there at the beginning of the walking trail.
And inside the area as well.
Correct, at the tables,
Yeah.
inside.
Everybody okay with taking that $42.93 forward? Any questions of Commander Templeton?
Yeah, I do. Couple. So the liquid chlorine versus the tablets. The tablets was costing over $50,000 a year, and the chlorine liquid was costing a little over $7,000. We've been using the liquid all along until just the last few months, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
And then
We switched over to liquid first. I mean, recent, not too long ago.
we started out with liquid when the pool was built. That's the way we started out. And we used the liquid type all those years, up until a few months ago, and it got switched over to tablets. And it ran the cost up to this amount. Plus, we couldn't hardly find the tablets, as I understand. Is that right? We had trouble getting
We were
tablets.
understanding when we went out that they couldn't find the tablets. Actually, we had the 5 buckets of tablets that evening by 2 o'clock.
Okay.
The pool had not had any chlorine or tablets in it for about 8 days, 7 days, something.
So that put the pool down to where it had to be built back up.
We had to do some work to get the pool clean, yes.
But what I'm saying is, we was running good on the liquid all these years, but it got switched over to something that cost another $43,000 a year. Who did that?
That would have been the last director.
Well, that came out of our committee that we were told, and Tanya, you can back me up on this, we were told that it was gonna be a money savings to switch over. It was gonna cost, did we not agree on $13,000?
Yeah, but we were under the impression that that's what the cost was going to be.
Correct.
To get the pool up
Right.
and running again.
Correct.
And that's how it was presented to the board.
But in the process,
Yes.
we approved the
To the tablets.
13,000 to get, so a part of that 13,000 must have went to the equipment to switch over to something we didn't know was getting right.
Correct, we did not, exactly.
Was gonna cost us $43,000 more a year.
That was never brought to our attention.
And we didn't know about that until lately. So it's a good move going back.
Absolutely.
It's a good move going back. Now, we didn't do any discussion on the lighting issues. These is major issues. You know, we're talking about over $1.5 million just in electrical issues in Don Davidson Park. That park will continue to flood. It's not going to stop flooding. We get 4 or 5 inches of rain, that park is going to continue to flood. I would strongly suggest that we take a look. We've got a lot of acres left over there on the soccer complex. I don't know how much acres we've got left. You, John? 10 acres maybe? I don't know. But there's a lot of acres left over there. And it was given to the city for municipal use on sports, whatever we decide to use it for. I do know this. I do know the last time everything flooded, I drove around and looked at Don Davidson and at Stonebridge Park. I drove out to the soccer field. Wasn't any water standing anywhere, but it is kind of low. It is a little bit low in there, and it might have to be built up. But before we put $1.5 million into Don Davidson, we don't have in the budget to put anything down there much. I think the board needs to take a serious look at if there's any way that we could do some facilities in an area that does not flood every time it comes a big rain. I think we should at least study that. That would be up to the committee. That would be something that would go to the committee
We
to study.
discussed that in committee, and we've asked I asked Chief Howell if he would check on getting prices and find out the acreage. There's a lot of information to gather before we have really a presentation to bring.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, but there's no way we're ready to come and say, can we spend $1.5 million?
Well, I'm not just talking about shutting Don Davidson completely down.
Yeah.
I don't think we can shut that park completely down, but it could be that if we could move some facilities to where we don't get hit so bad every time, because this is going to continue. I mean, it's not going to go away. It's going to continue. So, you know, maybe we could use some of those. Maybe we could use that property that's not being used. At least we wouldn't have to worry about every time it comes to flood, everything flooding. If we could be able to do that. So I'm glad to hear you're already looking into that.
And hopefully by next month, we'll have a lot more information on that. That way
Right.
we can compare the two.
Well, I'm glad you're looking into that, because you start talking about putting that kind of money just in the electrical part, that's a lot to talk about.
And that, yeah, that's not including the concession stands
Right.
and all that. That is just the lights and the poles.
Right.
I had a question about whether, what could be used at the soccer complex, the rest of the equipment there. What does the agreement and the contract stipulate for usage of the land? Was there any stipulation on that?
Free
I read
play.
It didn't have a size.
It didn't have a
on
size,
there,
that's
did
right. No, it was free play, but it didn't say any like specs, so we could still, I think what we're asking, what we're gonna look into is, the city utilizes a softball field and a baseball field, and they rotate, correct? Well, the baseball field, the major baseball field. So we could still have free play a place for it, because they didn't specify what size of a free play field.
And you could have, at Don Davidson, you could still continue to have daytime sports.
Yes.
Even if you didn't have
Absolutely.
all the lighting, you could have some lighting, but you could have daytime sports all the time. I mean, this electrical issue is what the problem is. I mean, well, some plumbing issues down there, but we need to, I mean, if we're going to start talking about putting this kind of money and taxpayers' money into a situation, I think we need to take a hard look at putting it into situations that's going to still be there after a flood comes. Of course, now the pole part, that's age. Age has got that. It's not necessarily the flooding part on that, but on the poles and cross members and all, I mean, that's just age related. That's been there a long time, age related. So I'm glad to hear that the committee's looking into it, because it's worth studying. It's worth coming back with a good hard look. But, you know, that's
We
what I think.
have to look and consider some of those things that Don Davidson were donated.
Right. Well, I wouldn't ever want to see that part closed. I wouldn't even want to see, I think we would want to see, for sure, daytime use on all those facilities, because it's a lot down there. I mean, you got more than just ball fields down there. You got that little lake, you got some type of golf they play and things like that. And you got, I think it's a running trail down there that people uses a lot. So it draws a lot of attention. And I know at one time a year, I believe they have some kind of battle of the border. I think that's daytime. I don't know if that's day or night.
It could run into the night because they wanted the lights this past year, and we had a situation.
We had an issue, that's exactly right.
So, you know, we could work a lot of that out for daytime probably, but this is going to take a lot of study on the committee's part and the board's part to do due diligence on how we go forward with recreation, plus how we fund it. I think there's funding mechanisms that can come about I really do. I think there's some funding mechanisms can come about. It might not cost taxpayers anything, but we still have to get some more information on that. That's all I had.
And we don't want to rush it. We want to do a study and come back with lots of information, but this is something that either way is going to have to be addressed.
Right.
Whether it's at Don Davidson, whether it's across the street,
Right.
or else we just lose all our sports.
Yeah, it's true.
I
So,
almost feel we need a special work session with everybody. I know it's a lot
Yeah.
for just y'all to take on. I think we all, this is, I want to know what kind of usage is down there that we're getting out of that. You know, like
Yeah.
Danny's saying, that's flooding all the time. That's, that stuff. I talked to Britt and Kim over at FPU, and they're willing to help every way they can.
They will.
And I think the city school system needs to help out too if we end up doing something down there.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I had already kind of heard a little bit about the comment that the committee might had rather the whole board be more involved than just them, because this is a lot. But of course, the committee is going to have to carry the load on this, but we as a board, we should be right there with them heavy, because all the decisions that's made going forward don't need just, all the decisions would get to us anyway, but like you say, if we're kind of in the process, they don't get left hung out there, you know, because these are some pretty big things to take a look at.
Well, some of these are going to be immediate, or as close to immediate as we can get. Others will have to go to strategic planning, I would think, to sort out funding. And
Yeah, it's there's some ideas been floating around on funding, and whether it's too early to put that out there to see if it works out or not. But on the side of it, I guess you say that the finance committee is on. There's been some ideas, kind of a little bit. We begin to hear some about this a little bit, but we begin to kind of think about it, you know. So we have to kind of think about how to do these things.
and that is something that I'd ask Chief Howell about. And if we get to the point where we feel like the committee has enough information,
Right.
I'll request a special call meeting
Right.
to discuss that with everybody. This is way bigger than Parks and Rec Committee.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good idea. Okay.
I do have a couple of questions. Back on the chlorine, I remember that the previous director contacted Duffield Aquatics and had them come out and look at the pool. The pool had been without chlorine, it was in very bad shape. And some time was spent on that. And also Burleson Pools out of Huntsville came, gave a quote, but this Duffield spent a lot of time on this. And the numbers that we were presented and everything, you know, it was supposed to take care of everything. You know, I know that we did have liquid chlorine, then we went to the tablets based on this. Is that going to change the system, the way that it's fed into the water and everything? Because I know this guy spent a lot of time along with the director on this. And, you know, the board, we knew about this because this came to us about Duffield coming.
No, we had.
We didn't know, no.
$40,000 increase.
No, we did not know about the money. None of us knew about that. We were told, the papers you got in front of you are correct. That was the bid they come to switch it over because we were not told it was going to cost us $40,000 a year to maintain it with that chemical at all.
So when Commander Templeton and Chief Howell went down there and started making an assessment, Chief, explain how many tablets you discovered were being used a week as opposed to what we thought were going to be used a
We
month.
used 5 cans within 7 days. 5 cans is almost $1,000. To answer your question, all it requires is adding a pump to it and hooking the lines up, and it runs the same way. So originally, what I understand, this is based on hearsay, I wasn't there. The original part that went out is called the head unit. The head unit is the mixture of everything it goes through. Somehow, I wasn't involved with that, none of my business, but what happened when they changed the head unit, he also went from the liquid to the pills. Well, what we got to noticing when we got down there, I was told at the beginning the bucket would last about a week. Well, as soon as you buy 5 buckets, they're gone. Well, we get to look at the value of it, and that's when we got to digging, and I also asked Stacy to go back and run numbers. ADC runs some numbers. We're a lot cheaper to go back to the liquid chlorine. It saves us a lot of money, but it runs through the same system. All we've got to do is hook it up, wire it up, and change a mixture on it. That's it.
And that was my question. I didn't mean to ruffle feathers there. But I mean, we don't need to act like we didn't know about this because we did. And that's what my question is. The system that we paid the $13,000 for will accept the liquid chlorine.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what I'm
All it required was, they had taken one pump away to put towards a hydrochloric acid mixture that had gone down. We replaced that one, and everything is good to go. We've already spoken with ADC or Hawking. They're going to have the product here either tomorrow or Monday, and as soon as it's here, all we literally have to do is flip a switch, and everything is back to normal.
Okay, that's good. Now, is this liquid chlorine, is it stored outside, inside? How is it?
There's a huge drum or a container that it's poured into, a 215-gallon tank.
Okay.
So, and it's secured in the building or fence down there behind the pool house.
Okay. And so the $13,000 is not just a total waste of money. We're still using it. It will work. Going back to the liquid chlorine, we will save money there.
Yes, the main savings is going to be from either going from the tablets or hockey pucks or whatever you want to call them back to the chlorine-based system.
Okay.
But everything else will work the same.
Let's be very clear. You're going to use the head unit. You're not going to use the other machine that holds tablets. So no, the statement would not be correct. Everything is in use. I want to be clear. The head unit will be used. The other unit will not be, that holds the pills that feeds the system. Mm-hmm. You're going away from it to the liquid chlorine.
It's that tablet holder is just basically a big hopper, and they dump those in there and they feed in. Our guys have to go out usually at the beginning of the morning or at the end of the day and make sure that nothing's got hung up on the side and it feeds down in there. But that hopper system will be obsolete now.
Okay.
But going back to what you were saying, that we knew about this, we did not know we knew about the $13,000, but he never was told the expense after that at all. We were saying it was going to be a savings. It's not a savings.
We were told the tablet system,
That's exactly.
going to the tablets, but we did not, basically, if we stayed with the tablets, it would have exceeded the entire operational budget of the rec department.
Because we're looking at, this would be about 25% of the operating budget.
And that actually, that 50,000 is less than what the original estimate we thought was like 126,000, could have been, so.
And then also on the Don Davidson and the soccer field, I think in us studying this and looking at this, we need to see what the need is. How many, I mean, do we have the leagues to play and build new fields? I mean, what is our usage other than, you know, what?
I agree, that's what I want to know too. I agree with that.
And I think things that can be a little skewed right now with COVID since we're not having all these major events, so that's something else to
Mayor,
consider.
may I interject on that line? I would like to ask you to allow Miss Brenda Sharp come up. We've got one here for many years' experience that can answer that question very clearly. She's dealt with softball and sports in that park for I don't know how many years, ma'am.
Yeah, because I do believe we'll have to go back more than the last 2 years. We can't really get a good picture of the last 2 years,
No,
but
2 years
last
are just-
10 years would
right.
be a good picture.
But I think we need to, I mean, things have changed, things have evolved. A lot of things that happened in COVID is not going to go back to normal. We see that in every part of our life. So I don't want us to jump out there too far and commit to something that there's not a need for.
Well, getting the information wouldn't be committing to you.
No, that's right. That's what I'm saying. We need to really take a long, hard look at what the need there is.
Ms. Brenda?
Well, you know, this past season, we didn't have that many teams in the youth, but the adults, they had more teams than they had like the year before. This was before COVID. But the reason being was that we didn't have any more youth than what we did. We were too late starting. You know, normally we start like the last of January, the 1st of February. It was April before I was called. So, you know, all of our people had left and gone to South Lincoln. But
Is Babe Ruth playing on the field at all anymore, Miss Brenda? Is that, it's just the
we
city
don't have the last time we had Babe Ruth, it was city and South Lincoln together. They were the only two that actually played together.
Right.
But after the schools, you know, got the baseball program, then Babe Ruth just faded out.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, Corbett did have something to do with it because South Lincoln played and we didn't.
And some of the kids did go to South Lincoln, but I feel like there were several, you know, that because we didn't have it in the city, wouldn't have the opportunity. Not
Well,
everybody
a
can
lot of
travel
them
that
had called
far.
and said they would come back.
Yeah.
You know, if we have a league.
And I had parents talk to me because they wanted to have a fall league. I mean, there were some that wanted to have a fall baseball and softball and some others. And, you know, we're recreational sports. And South Lincoln is a lot of travel ball. And there's a lot of people that they prefer to play in the city. So part of this was making a transition, and I spoke at a rec committee meeting about a month ago about the fact there's a huge need in this community for recreational ball, just teaching young kids how to play baseball. And the city taking the lead on running these leagues as opposed to these independent leagues. So that's, you know, you have a COVID issue, and then we really haven't at the rec department in the last few years, I'm not excluding you, Ms. Brenda, had somebody want to take the ownership of saying, yes, we want to sit here and, you know, run these leagues from the city perspective. So, I mean, there are plenty of parents that want to be involved and want to give input, their coaches and everything. And so, especially with the fields we have at Kids Park, and that's not floodplain at all. So we need to invest in those youth.
Any more questions?
Any other questions?
No problem. I mean, but, you know, saying that, there's a lot of, you said it a second ago, is South Lincoln is, what, 90% travel ball anyway. But there's a lot of kids here. What does it cost to play baseball on a normal year to sign up?
It's about
$35.
About $35.
Go play. That's why we need these fields back and get kids back here, because playing travel ball, it don't cost $35. It can cost you up to $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, you pay for a lot of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I haven't had any girls playing softball in several years, but I know 8 years ago, we were still having 16U. And we had several teams, even in that age group. And I would say we probably did after that, Miss Brenda, I'm not really sure.
This past year is the first time we didn't have 16-year-olds.
Right. And that's something that age group really enjoys, because by the time you're 13, 14, if you're not on the school team and you still want to play sports, that's your opportunity to do so.
True. Well, we have a lot of girls that play school ball that still play rec ball.
Yeah.
But that's 8 years ago. A lot of things have changed since then. And I'm all for sports. I'm all for our city, because I think our city doesn't offer enough right now when it comes to recreation. We don't offer enough for our city children or anybody from the county that wants to come to the city and play. But we need to look, make sure there's a need there. The parents had it. The parents were in control. We took that back to the city. The city's going to be over the ball fields. COVID hit. Now we're 2 years into COVID, and I think that we've lost a lot that's not going to come back. We need to be real about this.
Any other questions for Ms. Brenda? Thank you, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to planning codes.
Thank you, Mayor. The home grant resolution R2021-13, all it is the city will be complying with the policies and procedures, and Christy will be back to give a more in-depth report about this.
So we need to carry this forward to Tuesday to pass this resolution.
Yes, sir.
We've been awarded the grant, so
Yes,
we just need to paperwork.
How much is that grant?
$500,000.
Yes, sir.
It's not a matching grant, it's just a grant.
No, it's a grant.
Just a
And
flat-out grant, okay.
and from my understanding, the money's already kind of dedicated to the ones that applied.
Right.
So the people that have already applied for it. So do we know how many families it's?
Approximately 10,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't mind, I'll ask Pam, it's around 10? Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
So we don't really handle very much of that. That's handled outside of the city.
That's correct.
We just got the grant.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other from planning code?
Everything's doing good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll go to IT, Mr. Zach. Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you're aware, we had 5 original bidders. D&H was the original one that came out here before we found out it was going to be over $20,000 to work on this.
And I'll note for the audience, this is for the fire alarm system within the municipal building, replacing it.
Yes. When it came time to turn in bids, D&H didn't send a copy of what they originally sent us, so we couldn't put them in the ring decisions. So that just left Corson, ADT, State Systems, and ACT. ADT and ACT are the only ones that proposed to have all new wiring in the building. The others were going to use existing wiring for their job. So that's what led me to choose between ADT and ACT. And after that, if you look on your iPads, page 1 in the fire alarm section,
The biggest difference I could see between them is the amount of smoke detectors that they're putting in the building. ACT was going to go with 50 and ADT was going to go with 26. So I thought that was kind of a glaring difference, and so I reached out to them and asked a little more about the actual smoke detectors that they'd be putting in the building. And according to ADT, they have a more sensitive smoke detector, which allows them to get away with less in each building or in each room. They said, for example, this one would take 4. I think the ADT would just use 1 sensor for the entire room.
Do you know how many we currently have?
I can't tell you. I think actually, I think we have 36, because on ACTs, if you go on,
Yeah, it says 36 addressable smoke detectors.
on ACTs it says 36, and they would be replacing, and then down below is what they would add on top of that. So they were replacing 36 sensors and then adding 14 for a total of 50.
If you want.
Another thing to take into consideration is the monitoring. We broke it down over 5 years, and after 5 years, ACT would be cheaper by about $5,609. They also, ADT does all of their monitoring themselves, whereas ACT, we would have to reach out to a third party to handle the monitoring. But they organize it, but it's still 2 separate companies that you're dealing with for the monitoring versus...
So we'd have to pay an additional cost for monitoring?
No, it's all included, but what I'm getting at is, before we've had this issue of getting these phone calls in the middle of the night and we could never figure out how to switch it over, well, it'd be just ADT we deal with, and it'd be a lot easier than telling one company to tell another company to take something off their list.
I agree, that can be a nightmare. I've dealt with that before, so I know they're a little more expensive than the ADT side, but might be worth not having the headaches of going through 2 companies trying to figure out an alarm. I would just think with them putting up 50 when they come to check stuff, that's hard for me to believe it'd be less maintenance for them to check 50 when somebody else is checking 26. But just my thoughts.
Do you know if our current smoke detectors, are they wired in?
Yes.
As opposed to having batteries?
Oh no, there's a wire running to each one.
Okay, gotcha.
So we would save 5,000 with going with ADT? ADT?
ACT.
AC.
They got the 2 system.
Right, then you have to have another company with ACT.
But they're the ones that would have the third party that would actually notify if something got kicked off in the middle of the night. What's the board's wishes on which one? Between ACT and ADT?
Jeff, you deal with all this over at the bank.
Yeah, I've had a thing where you have to call 2 different companies, and it becomes a nightmare. I'm familiar with ADT. I don't know what ACT is. I tried to look it up earlier, and I couldn't find it.
Right.
It's ADT's reputable. Everybody knows who that is. That's a well-known name. That's one person we're going to be calling. That's my recommendation, is go with ADT for they're a known company. And
you're recommending going with ACT?
ADT. It is the one that's a little bit
ADT.
higher, but you're not going to be dealing with
right.
They're not the one ACT. You've been calling a third party to try to get them to fix something if something went wrong on an alarm at night, instead of actually calling the company that's selling it to us.
Yeah. It looks like their total is more, but their monthly recurring cost is a little bit less.
This is for 5 years?
Yeah. Because ADT only offered a 5-year. ACT had a 1, 3, or 5, but in order to compare them evenly, I did a 5-year breakout of them.
Okay. I'm not familiar with either one. Alder being more familiar with these type of systems, I agree with him. I agree we need to probably go with the ADT.
I'm going when we look at the bid, Zach, so here it's, if you look at on that top page at the bottom, it says total cost of 5-year. It actually is 51,654. Is that the actual amount? Or is it just 35 for the first year and then we have to budget the remainder for the next few years?
You're asking about where it says the total cost of 5-year term?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, does the board, is the total cost on the contract here going to be 51,654 as opposed to the 35,886?
No, because, well, ADT's was on their bid document, the total was 35,886, which included the first year of monitoring. And then after that, we would just have recurring costs.
What is our current cost? Don't know. I just wonder what was boosted already for the reoccurring cost. That wouldn't.
Well, the one side,
I think it was, we were paying $468 a year for the monitoring, but that's the only figure I was able to
because it's so obsolete, the system we've got, and our former IT director replaced or tried to patch.
We got it working for a little while, but it's just, you fix one thing, the age, something else was bound to go.
Okay.
And some of these are gonna go bad at some point. If you've got 50, compared to 26, you're gonna have to replace stuff, and if there's 50, gonna be a lot more replacing than if you've got 26 that have a better sensor in it too.
That was one of this came out of the IT planning committee. And Jeff, I agree with you, because at that time I made a comment, going with lesser detectors, that's lesser units have possibility of repair or replacing. So Zach, you're saying then on this bid, it's $35,886, which includes 1 year monitoring, and then after that, it's $262 a month?
I'm almost positive that's the way, but I would like to confirm that before the BMA, just to make sure. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
Yeah, that would help us, I think, if 35,000, we need to know. Does that include 1 year or does it not? So we go, but ADT is a reputable company, and I think we would be safe with them.
Somebody with ADT going forward?
ADT.
Okay. Anything else on your report this month? You had a couple other items on your report on the iPads.
There was the Spectrum cable. It's got finalized, going with the 18 versus the total 30. Other than that, we were just working on getting the rest of those new Dell computers in at the police department. We just got the evidence room left now. And stayed over last night, put a new battery in our UPS in the server room.
Do you have any trouble ordering computers because of the supply chain?
Well, I got in kind of right before it got really bad. I placed our order in June, and even then they were like, hey, it's going to be a while. And we saw with the laptops, we got the laptops in a week and a half ago. But it is getting to that point where if something else goes out, it might be a while before we get an exact replacement of it.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Go Finance, so Ms. Rozelle.
First thing we have on the agenda is the personnel additional of a PRN for the Emergency Communications Department. What happened, if you remember back during when we were discussing the budgets, the city approved to add another full-time dispatcher up there with the stipulation of the county also had to approve. The county did not approve. So we pulled that full-time dispatcher out. When we pulled that full-time dispatcher out, We did not add back the PRNs that they had always had, that they had removed from their estimate in hopes for this full-time person. So this PRN position is a position that they have had in previous years that just did not get put into the budget because we were planning for the full-time person. And so they have come back to us requesting to get that position added back into the budget. The way the personnel work at the emergency communications, we pay half of their salaries and Lincoln County pays half of their salaries. So the estimated cost for them to work approximately one shift a week would be about $5,500 to the city.
We talked about this in finance and all. It was a good case made for moving it forward. It's just going back where it has been before, if the county agrees to their part.
Yeah, contingent if the county agreed.
Yeah, depending on whether the county approves it.
And I did have a message from BJ to call him yesterday and never got a chance to, so I'm not sure if that is what it was in regards to after finance on Tuesday or not, but I will reach out to him today and see what he found out. I know he was going to finance first thing yesterday morning.
I do have a question. Does anybody sit on an 911 board in the city? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who's on that?
We have Chief Kimbrough and we have Chief Howell, and we even, is anybody else besides that? Those appointments go through Mary and them, and so we don't have any input on putting our own, city people on.
The 911 board is set up, what little I know about it. I do know this part about it. They're set up, it's a joint city operation, which really that's about the only way you can do it on emergency calls. They work under our personnel policy, strictly. They work under our pay scale, strictly. They have our benefits, strictly. Everything comes through the city, but the county then reimburses us for their 1/2 on whatever those total costs are. So in that sense, they're really working under all city policies, you might say.
They are city employees
Right,
in
they
every
are.
sense of the word.
And then we get reimbursed for the, whatever part of the county, whatever they owe. So now, once it gets in past that point right there, I don't know anything about how it operates when it gets past that point.
There's actually 3 components. Your city, county, and then what they call the district. And the district is everybody that the charge you get on your phone bill. That's the revenue. So that's the district part of it, which they use for all their operations and expenses.
We pay none of their operating expenses. The only thing we pay is salary and benefits.
Yeah. Was the board okay taking this forward? Contingent that the county will match. Okay. And then next, in finance, we discussed a proposed ordinance setting up pay differentials for temporary appointments, where we have the current situation where it's been under the discretion of the city administrator to do stipends if another employee has to take on additional duties. And so there was a structure of three tiers. You want to explain that, Ms. Roselle?
I can. This is something that was requested to just get a policy in place that states if someone is going to fill in at position A, position B, position C, there's a policy in place to say this is what they will be compensated, so it does not get into any kind of debates. And essentially what it gets down to is the board would appoint, in the absence of a city administrator, that position would receive 25% of their current pay. If it was filling in for a department head position, it would be 20%. Filling in for any other position would be 15%. And it also gets into language stating that this cannot be because someone's going to be out for 2 weeks. It must be a completely vacant position, requiring, for lack of better terms, that the city would lose productivity if this position was not filled. And it cannot be strictly for the opportunity of trying to get somebody some more money.
Thoughts?
think it's good to have something in place. That way everybody knows going forward what it's going to be, and I think it's good to have it right and have it done.
I would agree with that, and the fact that the city attorney has put a lot of time into this, it looks like, in order to. It's my understanding MTS has also consulted on this.
Yes, I consulted with MTS and they gave me a rough policy. We forwarded that on to Mr. Hill and he cleaned up some language in it and put it in ordinance form for us.
I'm for moving on for a vote.
I have a question for Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill, in the charter, it states that, is this going to supersede what the charter says of how the appointment is? Because it says that the board will appoint a qualified person to serve. And this,
well, no, an ordinance would never supersede a charter provision as just a general proposition. So obviously this adds to whatever is in the charter, because the charter makes no provision about how the person will be compensated.
I like that portion of this ordinance because, you know, we did talk about, you know, having a procedure or policy that percentages were just not pulled out of the air by the whoever. But this, in item D, it says the board may invoke this provision to appoint an existing employee. And the charter says, you know, you can go outside, you don't have to. I just don't want it to.
Well, and it's using the word may there, so the board would not be required to appoint an existing employee. I think the thing with, you know, my role in this, really putting it in ordinance form, D and E basically just differentiate between whether you're doing an interim city attorney or city administrator, which the board would appoint, or anything else which the city administrator would appoint. But no, I mean, in both cases, it's a may, it's not a shall, so it would not be mandatory to appoint anybody, and if the board chose to go outside the existing employees, I mean, there would be no reason why this would interfere with that decision.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
The board okay with taking this forward?
I am. This clears a lot of haggling.
Okay.
Sure, anyway.
And I guess
I was just taking
one
this
thing I
forward.
would say, I would propose to put this at Title 4 and make it Section 302, which Title 4 is the municipal personnel portion of the code, and Chapter 3 and Title 4 is just miscellaneous personnel regulations. So it seemed like the most appropriate place to add this to the charter, unless somebody has a better idea about that.
The next two items are requests from the city school system in regards to the FEMA Dome project. This is just asking for our approval since we're facilitating. They make the payments, but they want this on record. The first one is to Broadus and Associates for a total of $91,860. It was for schematic design. And the second one was to Hoffman Surveying for $3,900 for survey. So if it's okay, the board will take these forward and just ratify these.
Absolutely.
Anything else for finance? You want to give an update on local option sales tax?
Local option sales tax in the month of September came in at $265,356.80. And that is right at 9.5% more than last year in the same month.
And we are collecting taxes.
Property tax season is upon us, and the girls out front can tell you that for sure. We hit a real busy period right here in the first few days, and then it'll lag off for a little bit, and then it'll get real busy right between Christmas and New Year's, and then it'll lag off a little bit, and then we'll get real busy again about the last 2 weeks of February. So payments can be made all the way to February 28th with no penalties.
And what date does the 28th fall on?
I do not know, but now last year it did not fall on a Saturday, and we still chose last year to open the last Saturday of the month. So I would not be surprised if we did that again this year.
Okay. Any other questions of Ms. Roselle? Thank you. We'll go to administration. We have last month we had a public hearing. We had Laura Lee Page come, spoke about a proposed putting in on the multimodal. There was pretty strong opposition to going for a sidewalk up from the bypass around CBS up to the high school. So we have a proposal here to make a resolution of our 2021-14 to rescind resolution 2021-12, meaning we would not go forward with the application process. Thoughts by the board?
Well, yeah, I can see why we would look at this later probably. If you remember the motion and the second that we had on this, in the discussions, I know because I made the comment, somebody else might have too, there was a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions on people in the audience, two business owners in particular concerned. And one of my comments was that I was making this motion to move it forward, to keep it on track for funding and some timeline, I guess we had to beat it whatever, but that those questions needed to be addressed. The truth of the matter was there probably was not enough time to address those questions. Probably was not. I mean, it's, you know, we've been on a really tight time schedule since we started this. So I don't think it's a bad idea at all to back up and take a relook at all of this. And I even called the representatives of the Lincoln County school system, someone that I knew would know for 100% no. And I asked, I said, what do y'all know about this sidewalk project? He said, what sidewalk project? I said, well, I explained it to him, and he said, we've not been contacted anything about a sidewalk project coming on their property, county property. They got back with me and say, hey, we'll take a free sidewalk. Don't cost us nothing to go ahead and put it in. We'll take a free sidewalk. So there was just really, there was just really too many questions on that. I appreciate the fact that we had a state representative came maybe and gave us a chance to apply for this, but I agree that we need to back up, take a good hard look, because we really didn't know what a lot of this was about. And looking at the map, and I've been able to figure what a lot of it's about. It's about a long-range plan is what it's about, and it would be the first step in a long-range plan, I believe. And the lady that was here made it clear that you got to start somewhere with these plans. But I agree that we don't know enough about this. I agree that we need to back off on this.
This is something we can apply for again next year, though, correct?
You can. The hard part, and we all travel that every day, and in your mind you're thinking about where that sidewalk would go, and you're going to cut frontage off of businesses, and then you're going to hit a rock wall right in front by the La Fuente restaurant, and then it was going to happen where the Chrysler dealership is going to be, it was a noble idea, but I think it was going to be hard to execute and get full cooperation with all the ownership, because some of that's corporate ownership, it's not even local ownership. So.
Well, if you look close to the plans, and nobody ever told me this, I'm just telling you what I'm looking at, so on the plans, preliminary plans, I believe that there was somewhere, and I don't know where it came from now, I couldn't date. I believe I can't prove none of this, I'm telling you what I think I believe according to what little of the plans that we had. I think there's a desire to get a walkway over the Huntsville Highway for pedestrians to walk over. down north of where the light would be, because you couldn't put it, and it actually shows on the plans where that takeoff point would be down there in front of that dealership. And then if you look at the preliminary plans on Count Blunt, the river bridge that is going to cross Pedestrian Bridge, is going to cross into Count Blunt, you'll see on those plans, you'll see a walkway coming down the Hustle Highway matching up with that point. I think there's some plans out there somewhere that somebody's put into effect that we don't know a lot about that's headed in that direction. But we need to know a whole lot more before we head down that path. I'm just guessing on a lot of this, so I think putting this off and taking a hard look at it, and I don't think the questions has been answered for the people that's here either. Probably has not been, so.
What committee would need to work on that for next year? What committee
IT planning.
Okay.
IT planning.
Okay.
So is the board okay with taking this forward at the moment? And then we have review of LPR soccer field expenditure analysis. I'm not sure who requested that. Chief?
I'll take that if you want me to.
Okay.
I will take that part of that anyway, and the reason I'll take part of that anyway is that it seemed to me that in our soccer complex building, now these numbers is pretty well, there could be a few dollars here or there, but primarily this is cost analysis. I had been hearing things that I couldn't really figure out how it could be. There had been a $1.5 million cost floating around, and it could lead the taxpayers to believe it, the city taxpayers to believe it. They could be very responsible for that because there really been presented no kind of a breakdown or anything to the public. So I wanted to know myself. I'd kind of kept up with this going through the building process, coming through finance, first one thing another. Kind of kept up with this, but I didn't have it down like an accountant would, finance people would. So I requested the finance department to put together an analysis, and I felt like this analysis needed to be made out there to the public, which it was. The Alabama Times did an article, and as far as I know, tried to contact every alderman. They certainly contacted me, I know, and according to some of the comments in the paper, they was able to contact some more. So what this ended up being is a breakdown, and it was no need to be going through it because it's already been printed in the Alabama Times. So in that process, when I began to kind of look at this and go back and review it, what kind of caught my attention was a comment that was made by Alderman Hardman, according to the Alabama Valley Times anyway, and I had to follow up on his comment, and I did follow up on his comment with the finance director because I wanted to know is there anything going on here, and I was told that these was accurate numbers, which I'm going to give her a chance to respond to, but it needs to be cleared up. The comment was that Hartman also said she sees a lot of creative accounting in the cost analysis. Well, this is a cost analysis right here in front of us on the iPad. So this is where the creative accounting could have took place, according to that comment. I don't see it. I went back and I looked, and I went back and I done some questioning. I even questioned that credit we got that had to do with the water meter, and I wasn't really sure. I've been hearing this creative accounting threw it around for years, but not being an accountant or anything, I never really asked anybody what it meant. But I kind of looked it up, and it kind of gave an idea. If you look at the definitions up, and a creative accounting is not necessarily illegal, but it's deceptive. It's creative accounting. Although it might not be illegal, it can be very deceptive in leading people to the wrong conclusion. So what that tells me is our finance director is being accused of creative accounting. She's being accused of this. No employee should be accused of anything because she's the one that put this together. She put it together by herself. I didn't have anything to do with it. I requested it. But I never had any idea that we would have to deal with a situation to where accusations would be made against the analysis itself that was put together by a employee. So when I questioned her about this, she said, "I've got the invoices, you want a copy?" I said, "No, I don't want a copy." I said, "You got the invoices, you can speak for yourself. I'm not the person in this position." But in looking at, without comparing the invoices or anything, I don't see a problem with this. But I believe that this employee, if she wants to, should be allowed to stand up in front of this board and to defend herself against these kind of allegations. Now, we done got one thing floating around out there already. We done got one thing floating around already. And, you know, pointing things toward our employees in a public setting, I've not heard anything about this employee or the finance department, as far as I know now, come and question about this and asking questions about this if it's concerns about this. But it gets out there in the public, and the public's going to read these kind of things. They're going to automatically think, "Oh, what's going on down there at the city? They're down there playing with the numbers again." I don't believe that's happening. I'm convinced it's not happening. But I do believe that if she wants to defend her good name, which her good name has been, she's the one who put this together. Her good name as an employee has been tarnished. And I don't think it's right. And I don't think we need to be harassing employees. We already got one of those things going on now, and I won't go any further with that. But I don't believe that should be going on. And I believe that she should be given a chance, if she wants to defend her numbers. Will the board allow her to defend her numbers?
Yes, Mr. Bryant is correct. He did ask me to run a complete analysis of everything that we have spent on the construction of the soccer complex. And so I started going through all of the original grant documentation with all of those estimates and comparing them with every single invoice that we have. We have our contract that we signed with Large Design, a total of $844,000. If you look on your analysis, that will include, you see two line items for the contract and the portion of the contract that is for irrigation. I listed it out separate so that we can see that portion being pulled from the bond funds. The negative amount you see of $17,210, that was included in the baseline construction contract. However, it was cheaper for us to pay FPU ourselves for that water meter. So we have an invoice to FPU for $14,187.17. Next, we have our community development partners, the grant administrators. Every single invoice that we have paid to community development partners related to the LPRF grant. Next, we have Large Design, which are the engineers that have done all of the design work. All of their invoices, $69,385 if you go run a tape and add them up. Muscal Lighting, they put up all of the lighting and all. Those are paid through bond funds. $136,977. There's the invoice. I showed you the $14,000 invoice to FPU for the water meter. This is the invoice to FPU for the electrical. This actual invoice is for $19,468.24. The way FPU does their aid to construction on any of their big projects, they bill you their estimates. At the end of that job, when it is complete, and I know this because I used to do these billings for them, they will do a true-up based on the actual individuals who came out there to that site and did that work, all of their salaries and all of their benefits, and the actual cost of the material. When that job was completed, the estimate that we originally paid was more than the total cost of the job. Therefore, we received, and this is the receipt where we received it in, we received a check from FPU for $1,886.75. When you put those two numbers together, you reach $17,581.49. That brings a total actual cost of that field to right at 1.1 million. 500,000 of that we are reimbursed from TDEC through the grant. 206,000 of that is the idle UDAG funds that when the board voted on this contract, they requested to use for this project. Those were state funds that we were given many years ago. The actual cost that it is costing the taxpayers is $388,920.66. So just to break that down a little further though, so that we see $220,107. That is the Muscal lighting invoice and the irrigation portion of the barge design contract. That is what we have paid out of bond funds that the board voted on to use those bond funds for, that will ultimately be paid by the taxpayers, but paid out over 20 years. The actual part that we are pulling from our fund balance, the capital portion of our fund balance, is $168,813.66.
Now, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
I ask you, and I'm not talking to you about this since, period. I ask you to break it down in percentages.
Yes, sir.
What percentage, and we see that at the bottom, and I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Over on the value cost side, and we'll get back to this in a little bit, the value cost is $1,594,000.
Yes, sir.
So that's the land donated.
Had Goodman not donated that land to us,
This is what it would cost.
that is what it would have cost us, because we would have had to have paid, the state would have paid $500,000 and we would have paid $500,000. We did not have to pay that that $500,000 because of the land donation. So that property, including the land and just the portion of the land that we got to count towards the grant, brings that facility to just shy of $1.6 million facility.
Okay, now, when I asked you to do a percentage, because I wanted it broke down in percentages, I didn't tell you anything other than I wanted you to do a percentage to where we can see the percentage that each group paid, which we only ended up paying like 35%, I guess, close to that as city taxpayers for this, which to me is a good deal. But now we had a number, we had this 1.5 million number been kind of floating around here that for a long time, and that's what we kept on hearing. And that's the reason I kind of asked for a breakdown on this. But you did if the percentages had been worked out on the 1.5 side instead of the a little over $1 million, it would have ended up being about 84% that would have been covered by other, and only about 16 by us.
That is correct.
But you did.
I did percentages of actual cost.
Because you deal in actual numbers.
Because dollars is what
Dollars is dollars. Now, if you'd have did that, you might could have called it a little bit creative. But you didn't do that. You did it in this. Well, I'll ask you one more question here. You presented this to where it could get to the public, where the public can make their own decision. That's what I wanted anyway. And it's been alleged that there's some creative accounting in this analysis. Is any of this creative accounting, or is this straight down the line?
No, sir, it is straight
by
math.
law.
It is straight math by law. I have always said I love math because no matter what, 2 + 2 is always 4. There are no other ways that you can add numbers. Numbers are numbers.
Okay. My only other comment is, since allegations has been made, there's some creative accounting going on in this process. Go ahead and try to prove it.
And there's a lot of people in town that weren't for this soccer field, and that's fine, that's their opinion, but here's the truth right here. You can go around and say whatever you want about 1.5 is what it costs. Ed Valley Times has the number broken down. I agree with that number. Everybody gets to see the truth instead of hearing a bunch of rumors. So
Whether you agree with what the cost is spent on, whether we should have built that soccer field or not, that is no opinion of mine. My job is to present the numbers, and that is what I have done.
I appreciate that.
No, thank you. But you know, going back, what can you spend $168,000 for that facility? I mean, that's a lot. And we were talking about the lights for the Don Davis. Look at that lights and look at the poles, what it cost them to put that up there. Look how much we could save if we did go back to our committee and decide to move some fields over there.
Yeah. Well, my intent on bringing this forward was not so much on bringing this particular issue. My intent to begin with is to get the truth out there. No, it's rhetoric. It's just rhetoric. Get the truth out there. My intent on bringing this forth about this particular issue here is, as a board member elected by the people, I'm not going to sit here and have our key employee basically accused of something. And if this is not cleared up, she carries that with her from now on, because she's the one who put these numbers together. It's not right. It's wrong. And even if something like this had really even happened, why would you put that there in the public without coming back and do a study on it? Why would you do such a thing? And I'm not going to sit here and tolerate it. Our employees being targeted. You could say, well, nobody's name's in there. Well, we know who put it together, don't we? We know exactly who put it together. And I guess the fact that once this was put together, Stacy wanted to be sure, is this what you kind of had in mind? Is this what you want? I said, yeah, I want the truth. If this is the truth, I want the truth put out there. And I kind of signed off on this, you might say. So I got to take this a little bit personal towards me also, because I asked for this. It looked like to me it was good numbers. But all of a sudden, it comes back and it's creative accounting, and I don't believe it. I know for a fact it didn't happen. To put something like that there in public, and to target employees, which it ended up doing that. It would end up doing that. There's no doubt about it. And you target me all you want to. I mean, that's one thing. I'm an elected official, but I'm done tolerating our employees being targeted. I'm done. From now on, anytime I see that, hey, if they need to be targeted for something, so be it. We'll deal with it. If they're going to get their reputation dragged through the mud, I will not sit here and not speak up. And I will be disappointed in a board that will allow such a thing as this go on without being addressed.
I think we all hold a higher standard. We all should hold the higher standard.
Well,
people look up to us.
As elected officials, we can get beat up on. I mean, because, hey, we're in this thing that's part of being an elected official, go ahead and get beat up on. If an employee needs to be dealt with in some way, so be it. Somebody's got to find some way. But I'm not tolerating something like this, not speak up. I'm not going to do it.
Okay, well, I want to speak up and defend why that was my comment. I was contacted by the paper. I was given this analysis. I said, those are true figures. That, according to what I have, is close. I mean, this is true. I had no reason to question that. I did not target any employee. What I meant by the creative accounting, and that's what I told the paper, is this. And Stacey, I'm glad that you brought that up about mathematics. What I've said all along for this whole process is it's a $1.5 million project. You take the land out of that, it's $1 million project. We got a $500,000 grant, which leaves the balance of $594,000 some odd dollars. That's plain math. That's basic math. Who's going to pay that $594,000?
206 of it came from the state.
Okay, wait, I didn't interrupt you. You don't interrupt me. Now, the creative part is we're not telling the taxpayer the truth, really. We're giving them the figures, but we're kind of changing this. It doesn't say, the taxpayer owes the $594,000.
Where does it say that?
We took out 206 out of the DAG fund. That DAG fund had been sitting here idle for years. It could have been used for a lot of things. It was not used for its intended purpose. So we take that balance and put it over here. That's taxpayer money. Now, we're going to call it what we want to on this analysis, but that's money that could have gone to help with sidewalks and a lot of different things for the city. Then we go down here and we say it's paid through bond funds. That's true. I never questioned that. I never denied that. But who's going to pay back the bond? The taxpayer. Okay, then that leaves a balance of $186,000, $168,000, $800. Who's going to pay that back? We label it as capital fund. That's taxpayer money. So $1,094,920. You take off the $500,000 grant, it's $594,000 that the taxpayer is going to have to pay. And that was my intent of that. I want the taxpayer to know that's your money, and that is basic math.
I'll respond to that. I'll respond to that.
Okay.
You don't have to. All right. I don't know what is wrong with anybody not being able to see what's going on here. The $500,000 grant was a grant. We get grants all the time. So in other words, what you're saying is we need to stop grants because the city taxpayer is going to pay for them. Stop all grants?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, okay. You let me finish now. Don't interrupt me. All right. So we get a $500,000 grant for this purpose. So it's there, just like we get grants. This is a match grant. We got to come up with another match somewhere. Now, during that time when we got this grant, we didn't have that land. So the board went out on the leap of faith saying that, you know, when the land idea came up, which Mayor Law had a lot to do with it, if it hadn't been from a lot of work that Mayor Law put into this, I don't know if it ever got this deal with decking or not. But anyway, he worked through that, and he did manage to get a lot of good communication. So the grant is just like any other grant. It's state funding or federal funding or whatever. Someone is going to pay for that grant somewhere, but it comes through state dollars. Yes, we pay in state taxes, all right, but we're going to pay in the same amount of state taxes whether we get that grant or not. I don't understand what anybody can't understand about how you use grants. So by the work that was put into obtaining that property by a lot of people, really, Mayor Law being one of the main leaders of it, I think. But we get a piece of property that offsets the city taxpayers having to come up with another $500,000. We would have been at a decision to either put in another $500,000 or drop this grant, but because we got the property, we didn't have to come up with another $500,000, which is, to me, makes sense. But as far, let me talk about the 206 a little bit. The 206 sat there over 10 years. It sat there over 10 years. Now, it was $400-something thousand to begin with, so we took a little over half of that and used toward the branding initiative and all. And then it sat there over 10 years. It was $206,000 sat there for over 10 years. Somebody had to finally figure out how to use this. We got a state permit in writing to use this $206,000 for this purpose. We got a state approval to use it. Now, it wasn't used for what it was intended for, but the state gave us permission to use it for this because it's for the benefit of the whatever. So that funding came through some kind of grant way back yonder in the past. Well, if it could have been used for something else and you want to make a big case about that, why don't you go ahead and put an idea out there? This was my idea to go ahead and use it for this. Anybody could have put that idea out there to use it for whatever you wanted to. I didn't hold nobody's hands and tie them up and say you can't use it for something else. But hey, it's there. If it helps the city taxpayer get out of this little situation we got into, why not go ahead and use it to save that much more money to the city taxpayer? Nobody's arguing the fact that we're ending up with $388,920 in over on a $1.5 million field. Nobody's arguing that fact. I'm not arguing that fact. I agree with the numbers. I agree with the numbers. I mean, they're there. The issue that I brought up today wasn't necessarily about every little step that we went through, but we didn't have any choice. We got to a point where we was going to have to give this project up, give that $500,000 up and walk away from it, look Dyking in the eye and say, well, we're nowhere with this piece of property. We got to figure something out now, or go ahead and find the cheapest way we can make it happen for the taxpayer. The issue that's kind of brought up here today is the allegations that somehow or another there's been some type of mumble jumble creating. Every bit of this has come before the board. The board has approved every step that we've made. The board has approved every single thing we've done. We've done everything according to accounting rules, if I'm not mistaken. And you can say all you want to say. I don't care how much you say. If you say if you put out there in the public that these kind of things has been going on, you're going to have to prove it, and you can't do it. You can't prove it. Not going to happen. Not going to be able to prove it. Everything we've been done has been above the board. Everything we've been done is to save the taxpayers a lot of money, a whole lot of money. And I can't understand for the life of me why in the world that this could turn into a situation to where something is good for the benefit of young people, of students, of young people, not just city people, county people. We allow county people to use this. And all of a sudden, it's turned into, or tried to be made to turn into, what we're not going to allow it to be turned into. I'm going to stand up for our employees. I'm going to stand up for our integrity of our employees. I'm going to stand up for the way that this has been handled until somebody can prove different. And it ain't going to happen. You're not going to prove it different. I appreciate you. I've got all the confidence in the world in you. I appreciate the work that you've done on this, and I will back every employee that works hard for the city of Fayetteville from now on, as long as they do right. If they don't do right, but you've done right.
Thank you.
You've done
I take
right.
my job very seriously, and I hold myself to a high set of standards, morals, and ethics.
I can go back to when Tanya Travis was in your position. I never asked her anything that she didn't give me the correct information. She gave me every bit of the information I ever asked for. I tried not to overburden her, which I intend to do that a little sometime. I tried not to. But I've never had, I can't think of anything that's ever come out of finance with you or her to where I've been misled in any way. When you're dealing with an $18 million, is that what we got, $18 million budget? You're going to drop some things every now and then. Things are going to fall through the cracks a little bit. The question is, did you do it intentionally?
I will never tell you I will not make a mistake, but it will never be intentional.
It'll be an oversight, which you'll come back and take care of whenever.
And I will fix it. If I mess it up, I will fix it.
Do you see that you've messed anything up in this analysis?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you see that you've messed anything up in handling the numbers that the board has put forward to you to handle, whether it be bond issue, whether it be out of bond issue, whether it be out of grants? Do you see where you mishandled any of this in any way?
No, sir, I have not mishandled any funds.
Well, I'm glad we've got an employee with this type of integrity.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, again, I did not accuse anybody. I agreed when I was contacted with these figures. I'm not disagreeing with that. And Denny, you speak again of $388,000. The difference wasn't $388,000, it's $594,000.
I don't know how.
Let me talk.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to get somebody else to answer your question.
Okay, and then this originally happened when all this originally started, Mayor Law worked on getting the grant, getting the land donated and everything. That was great. We went to Barge Design, and I say we, I was not on the board at that time, but it was taken to Barge Design. And it came back to this city, because I got the copy of it. It came back to this city that they could build a soccer field within the perimeter of $500,000. Now, the land was donated, that's free. We've got a grant, $500,000. We build a field for $500,000. It zeroes out. Taxpayer doesn't have to pay anything. Somewhere in the mix, somewhere along the way, Mr. Collins was involved that it became a competition field and we had to pay an additional $594,000. I never once said, so this is being turned around, that I said that the figures was wrong. I didn't. I agree with the figures. I verified the figures when I was contacted. But the taxpayer the difference is $594,000.
The problem is,
I'll let that go. I won't respond to that because we have discussed how we got to this point several times. And how we got to this point was that we was put in a position to where we had to make a decision. How we got in that position, I didn't have anything to do with getting in that position. We was put in a position where we had to make a decision. Okay, are we going to drop this project? Or are we going to find a way to make it happen in order to use this bond, to use this grant, to use this land? We had to make a decision. The board made these decisions in order to go in this direction. Every single decision we made was in the public. Nothing was hidden from the public. There's nothing in none of the decisions that was made has anything to do with creating accounting. I'm done. I don't know how in the world. I don't know how in the world I can make it no clearer. I don't know how in the world Stacy can make it no clearer. I'm speaking against a situation that I'm in a rock wall, but you're honest.
All right.
I'm done.
Chief Howe, you have anything else under administration?
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you standing up for employees. It is time to stop.
It's time this board stand up for employees. It's time for our employees to stop being, well, I need to stop right there because there's a situation going on right now that I don't want to lead us into. But thank you, appreciate it.
Mayor, I have nothing.
Last item we have in front of the board, if you have your copy, the position profile for city administrator. This was put together by our MTAS representative, Chuck Downham. I coordinated with Ms. Gentry from Planning Codes to provide some pictures to personalize a little bit more. And then on the last page, you have the proposed position advertisement. So I gave this to each of you to review and look over thoroughly and give your input, whether you want to add anything, you want to take anything out of it. And then once the board comes to agreement on this, they'll move forward with the advertisement on this position.
I only had just a minute. I've not seen this before. It's the first time I've seen it on the last page.
Yeah, this came out. Yeah, this was
on the last page. Says salary range 85,000 to whatever. Well, I don't know that 85,000. We're going to be able to use that salary range. I mean that we've got a scale that employees is set up on. We have an employee scale. If we deviate from that scale, we begin to open ourselves up to a little bit of a. I'm not sure we should deviate from that scale.
That's fine. That's the reason why I'm asking for input.
That scale with the city employee is not 85,000 starting out at the very bottom. 91. So I don't know that we can, if we go in and offer below the actual scale that we've got officially, I don't know, we might want to take a look at changing that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everybody put your input on that.
Right. So, but I've not had time to look over it. So when do you want the input back? By board meeting or when?
No, you take a week or so when everybody just, like I said, thoroughly look at it. You got any questions? You know, or additions, or if you want to take something out. But this is something we want to put out there when they're advertising for our next administrator. And so, all right. Well, we'll stand adjourned and we'll come back Tuesday night.